Hey everybody, welcome back to the Lead Security YouTube channel where we help churches and church leaders just like you become more inviting and secure. You don't have to be only inviting and welcoming with doors wide open with no security, but you also don't have to be a fortress. You can be secure and welcoming. See, I actually believe that a secure church is a welcoming church. It's a place where people find peace and feel secure. In today's video, we're highlighting 5 threats that churches tend to overlook on a Sunday morning. So if you're a pastor, a volunteer, or serve in any capacity at your church, you need to know what you might be missing. If you find value in this video at any time, hit the like button and share this with somebody from your church staff or somebody that's on your security team. And since we're talking about likes and shares, if you aren't already, smash the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the content we upload right here on the Lead Security YouTube channel. Now let's get into this. First on this list is unlocked or unmonitored doors. This is one of the most common vulnerabilities we find at churches, but it's also the most easily fixable one. Here's the problem. Churches want to be welcoming, so they leave multiple doors wide open. They even prop them open sometimes. A volunteer comes in through the back door and they accidentally leave it propped open, or maybe somebody grabs a cell phone call.
Can you hear me now? Good.
And they sneak out and they leave it propped open so they come in, but then they end up going in a different door and doors just get left open and then they get unnoticed. Unlocked and unmonitored doors create unwatched access to children's areas and entry points for people with malicious intent. Every church needs to permit themselves to control access points on their campuses. So how do we manage this threat? By limiting how many doors are unlocked and by monitoring doors that are unlocked. That means you're going to want to assign someone to do routine door sweeps. Our team does a rove every 10 to 15 minutes and has very specific things that they're supposed to check on every time they rove. They check whether or not office doors are unlocked. They check to see if classrooms are secure and simple things that give a nod to servanthood. They walk through the parking lot to make sure nobody dropped a wallet or a debit card. I've actually lost count how many times I've found debit cards just sitting by themselves in our parking lots. I know it happens because people are rushing to get to church and they probably pull through like a Starbucks or something for breakfast and they just lay their wallet on their lap and then they're in such a rush to get to service. They open the door and then the wallet falls out just kind of haphazardly into the parking lot. But every time I find a wallet and every time we return those kinds of things to their rightful owners, they are overly grateful. Now, getting back to the topic, locking and monitoring doors doesn't have to take much effort, but it does make all the difference when it comes to mitigating threats. Coming in at number 2, we've got distracted greeters. Now, I love a warm welcome team. I don't want to knock a warm welcome team, but I do want you to look at something this Sunday. See if you notice it this Sunday. And I'm not going to say that this happens 10 to 15 minutes before service or 10 to 15 minutes after service. But if you look like 30 minutes to an hour after service starts, see if your welcome team isn't kind of huddled in a group off to a side. And the reason they do that is because most of our greeters are trained to smile, to shake hands, and give out, the church bulletin or the church newsletter. They're not really trained to look for threats or to identify anomalies. If you look at your greeters team like 30 minutes to an hour after service starts, they feel like their job is done. They've positioned themselves with their backs to the doors. They don't notice the person pacing in the parking lot or the guy that's wearing the heavy jacket in July. What a lot of us fail to realize is a greeter is our first line of defense. With just a bit of situational awareness training, greeters can learn to make eye contact, to observe body language, and to flag unusual behavior without making the situation uncomfortable or make the church feel unwelcoming. They don't have to become security officers or guards. They just need to be friendly with a focus. So how do we manage this threat? Well, I kind of covered it just a moment ago, but what you're essentially going to want to do is include your greeters and even your ushers in your security training whenever it makes sense. Elevate their position by offering them training in things like situational awareness. Even include them in your Code Adam drills where you're preparing your team to find a missing child that's on your property. Now, if you do, I don't expect you to get much kickback. You're probably going to get a lot of appreciation. Now, third on this list is an unsecured kids ministry. If your church has kids ministry, which most do, managing this threat is going to be mission critical. The sad reality is this: we live in a world where predators exist, and they're constantly looking for easy or soft targets. An unsecured children's ministry area with no check-in system, no ID matching, and open access is an open invitation for people with malicious intent. If anyone can walk into your kid's hallway, if your classrooms are almost always unlocked and never monitored, and especially if your volunteers aren't background checked, if they aren't vetted thoroughly, I'll go one step further and say, if your volunteers aren't trained, your kids' ministry isn't secure. I don't bring this up for the sake of fear, but I bring it up for the sake of stewardship. God has trusted us with kids, which means we have an obligation to keep them safe. Some of the kickback that I get is from believers who say things like, but God is ultimately in control. To which I say, God is in control, but you still wear a seatbelt, don't you?
Got him!
Being good stewards means we lock doors. It means we know who is serving in our children's spaces. And it definitely means we have systems set up for who gets to pick up kids at the end of service. When parents know their kids are secure, they can worship and not have to worry. I say this often, but I say it because it's true. A secure church is a safe church, and a safe church is an inviting one. At number 4, we have being unprepared for medical emergencies. We don't like to think about it, but medical emergencies are far more likely than violent ones. People pass out, people choke, people go into cardiac arrest, and most churches are completely unprepared. When my security team does an in-person consultation or an in-person audit, this is what we usually find. No one knows where their AED is, if they even have one. There's no designated medical professional on site. They have no plan for crowd control in case of a medical emergency. And very few people, if any, are certified in CPR. In an emergency, every second counts. What you do in the first 60 seconds could save someone's life. So how do we manage medical emergencies? Well, one, you're going to want to identify some people that are already in your community who have medical training. Think about nurses or doctors, EMTs. I'd even go dive deep, and you might want to see if there are any coaches who have to maintain certain certifications like CPR and first aid that might be willing to be your on-site person. Ask them if they'd be comfortable being the designated medical professional while they're at church. And if they're okay with it, politely ask them if it would be too much trouble to have them check in with the security team at the beginning of service so the team knows that, one, that they're there, and two, where they're going to be located in case of an emergency. Another thing you can do is update your medical equipment and keep it accessible. The first aid kit isn't going to do anybody any good if it's locked in a closet that only one person has a key to. Beyond that, run some drills and even host a CPR training class at your church. Don't feel like you have to pay for everybody to get certified either. Your team is going to feel like you're investing into them just because you set up the training. Now, last on this list, I've got no communication plan during a crisis. Now, this one is big and it's unfortunately often forgotten. Now, let me ask you this. If a child goes missing in your service, do you know who you're going to alert first? How are you going to notify your team discreetly? What if a threat walks in the front door, like a violent threat? Do you have a silent alarm system? Most people don't, and that's okay. But what's not okay is not having a plan. Here's the kicker. Most churches don't have a plan or a system, but they assume that they're just going to figure out if something bad ever happens. The problem is figuring it out is a recipe for confusion. It's a recipe for panic. And it guarantees a slow response time. Every church needs a simple, clear communication plan. You need to outfit your team with two-way radios. If you're on a budget, look at the Zello app that transforms your cell phones into two-way radios. It's a simple solution that you can implement this Sunday. Why? Because everybody already has a cell phone. So the equipment that you're going to have to purchase is absolutely minimal. Beyond two-way radios, you're also going to want to create a secure text group for your security team. My team uses Signal. I recommend it for a few reasons, but mainly because it's easy to edit who's in the group, and it also offers end-to-end encryption, meaning it's really difficult for someone to hack into your text thread.
That's good.
Having a communication plan puts you and your team a step ahead of your opposition. When you look at that through the scope of church security, it means your people stay safe even in high-risk situations. The truth is this: it's not usually the threat that we're watching for that causes the most damage. It's the ones that we never considered. Your church doesn't need to become a fortress or a prison, but what it does need to do is it needs to create a plan. Security doesn't replace faith. It actually reinforces it. And before I close, if you need help assessing your risks, if you need help training your volunteers or creating an action plan, don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. If you found value in this video, be sure to like it. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and smash the notification bell. Share this video with somebody in your church leadership. Use it as a tool to train your volunteers. And as always, thanks for joining me on the Lead Security YouTube channel. Stay inviting, stay secure, stay safe. We'll see you in the next one.